Right, since you mentioned earlier, because the G2 series was the great example of this, but also, let's be real, you guys won against Wonder too, and I know now everyone changes it to like, because of that series, he's bad and terrible. It's like, people were putting Wonder like top 1 and 2 in their all-pro votes, guys. Like, he was very actually respected this split. He wasn't one of the people everyone thought and Fnatic had dive-bombed, you know. So if you're Odoamne and you win a series against Wonder back-to-back with Broken Blade, and if you look in the finals, dude, this isn't like normal Odoamne. Game 1 is he's on. Okay, that's fine. That's Odoamne. Cool. Game 2, he's on the Renekton, which I'm sure most people thought was LoL. Like, wow, why's he picking that? Because Rogue's just had some infamous games on Renekton, right? It's like I said in the watch party, it's like when Game 3, when they respect by the Renekton, you're like, this is a different game entirely. We're in a new world now of Rogue, mate. And then obviously Game 3, he plays literally Broken Blade's Aatrox into his Fiora, which obviously, it was picked the other way around. But like, this isn't just like, I'm just the boring weak sider who the bot lane has to win me the game. Like, who is Odoamne from this final? Is this like him unleashed or something?
Well, first of all, I think it's more important to talk about Wonder, right? Because I think it's so egregious to say this guy is not good or to say this guy is overrated. Like, he's very, very good. Without Wonder, they would most definitely not have made Worlds. I can promise you that. And I think he brought a lot of value to that team. In terms of Odoamne and what he was able to do, I think Odo's always been the kind of guy where he's insanely and intensely competitive, and he'll do anything it takes to win, or he'll do anything that makes him feel like gives us as a team a better chance to win in the matches. So, in this series, he was, for example, that Fiora pick, he was always trying to pick things that felt like gave us the best chance to win. And we knew about the Fiora. We were talking about the Fiora in 4-5. But we felt like that against our composition, it wasn't the best. And also with their jungle pick, Trundle actually needs to hit level 3 first before being useless. So we would have a turn of tempo, or like we'd be able to be faster on the map with Jarvan, which can skew that matchup entirely. So that was like kind of our calculated risk. And Odo wanted to put him on a champ that was difficult to execute in team fights, unless you spoke Mandarin, obviously, and you're like a Chinese Fiora. So that was like kind of our thought process behind it. Now, I wouldn't say Odo's unleashed. I think he's always had that in him. But something that really changed about him this year was that he grew tremendously as a person in terms of how he gave feedback. Now, people always like joke about him like flaming, and I know that Xerxes did an interview about him, but the way that he tries to give feedback, right, has changed tremendously. And yeah, he's just a really intense competitor. Now, it's not always for the good. Like, for example, I know for a fact against G2 in the spring split, he wanted to like take the game topside, right, for a multitude of reasons. Now, if you look at it from a game theory perspective as well as like a matchup perspective, that's not like the best thing to do, right? So sometimes he has those flaws, but in general, like, he's a tremendous competitor and he's always driven to win. And if he has the right people around him, he's always been a champion. And I think that he proved that when he was in Schalke. So, during the miracle run, right?
Yeah. Well, obviously that was all the big narrative of Odoamne, was he finally won, right? Yeah, go on, did you have something more?
Yeah, so one more thing is that I think that Odo, like, a lot of people meme or like talk about how he is very direct and abrasive, but I actually think that this is an extremely valuable quality. I think that right now in the moment, these kids or these like players that are young may not appreciate what he's bringing to the table, and like through his brutal honesty. And sometimes, of course, he overreacts, but from my experience with the people that are abrasive and straightforward and honest to you, those are the people that actually look out for you and care about you and actually care about winning and hold the team to a higher standard. And that's really what Odoamne is to me. And I think that is his greatest strength as a human being. So I prefer that any day.
Even though obviously when he won, everyone did make it all about like, he finally won after all those years, wow, he got it done and blah blah. Oh, did he get to the top of the mountain? All the usual narratives he give. What people don't know is, so with some players, some of those things really are just narratives to them. Some of them actually don't even think the same way fans think, or some of them just think, like, I know players that have never won the championship, they're like, I'm a brilliant player, I just never had the right teammates, and it doesn't get to me. It's actually, some of them, for real, it's not the case. That's real with him. I can tell you from knowing him for many years, that is a real thing. He actually actually does himself think about that factor, like, why did I never win? When he's in the teams that come second or third, he does think sometimes for real. Maybe I'm the choker. Maybe I'm part of the reason why. Maybe something about me under pressure gives up. And I know for him, in a sense, to actually for real win, not just to have people like, I've said the same thing to me, you're one of the best ever, mate. Don't worry about if you never get the title, who gives a fuck. But I know that to actually for real win is really important. And it's sort of, for me, it's almost like it made him feel like he is legit. He could be the best, right?
He's an absolute, like, tremendous competitor, insanely competitive, to the point where he's extremely self-critical or critical of, or holds his teammates to almost an unrealistic standard, I remember when we were in the Fnatic series in game 1, he came back into the room and he was like, I just think maybe we're not playing well right now, like maybe we're talking too much, we're just making poor decisions, like what's going on, and to be able to say that and then go into next game full of confidence and to compete, I mean, that is something in itself. But, once again, you can see the value in him being able to like have an open discussion about that, I mean, in that instance, we just told him, dude, we just made a couple bad decisions, don't overreact, just focus on this. We had good picks, we just made bad decisions here and there, and we sounded a bit panicked. And he said, okay, went out there and played the game. But yeah, I mean, it's just, it is insanely valuable for any coach and for any player out there. For any teammate out there to have this kind of person in your team, I think.
And then obviously, if people listen to the mic check of the final, the joke is, it reminded me of in spring, if you listen to the mic check of Jankos, it's like the vet who's like, look, I've been here a lot of times, like, guys, stop fucking around, like, it's game 3 now. Because that line he said when he was 2-0 up and then you swapped the sides of the game, and he basically said, look, me, Trimby and Larson were here this a year ago. We were here when it's obviously the one against Mad Lions from the year earlier. He was basically like telling them, like, don't fuck around, like, we've been up 2-0 before and you can lose in 5 games. It isn't like we're just going to course to the win. Like, it seems like he also is like a leader.
He is a leader. He really is a leader. Sometimes, it's difficult for him to be perceived as that because he is so abrasive and he doesn't give the feedback in the right way. I mean, I think that's changed a lot, as I said, throughout this year, and he's not like this anymore. But in the beginning, it was always like that. But like what struck me was in this final series, normally I'm the one that comes in and does a speech, but he sat down, and he said, guys, I have something to say. We all just turned around and he gave the most, he told everyone what they needed to hear, which was that, look, I know that it hasn't been the best for us. We've had some issues as a team, but since coming to Malmo, I feel like we've come together as a team and we've really become a team. And I'm sure that if we play this way and if we play together, we're going to shit on everybody. And he just knew what to say, and he knew from experience, what we needed. And I think his leadership qualities that were always muffled under, I would say, the delicate hearts of professional players, right? Delicate egos of professional players really came out and came to full spring when he had a full team around him and he was given an environment where he could speak his mind and talk in an open way. And it was just incredible. And he gave a multitude of these throughout the series, and they really, really helped. So yeah, for sure, like full credit to him, and it was incredible.
You alluded to it earlier, but I think his longevity is truly incredible because it's not even just like, wow, he still plays in the LEC. It's like, bro, if you look at his peak level, he might be at his absolute best now, like a billion years into his career. Like, that just doesn't happen in League of Legends. It's so rare. I can count on one hand the players. Like, it's people like Reckless, maybe Suarez at some point. It's very rare people that can do that. What is it about him do you think's allowed him to just keep returning to the top?
As I said, it's just that quality of like never being okay with being average, and something that people don't know about him is, initially when he first started in H2K and stuff, he was lauded as like the savior of EU, like he was an incredible laner, right? And people were talking about how he was shitting on Koreans in lane. This year I can tell you for sure that wasn't the case when we first started. Like, he was like crashing the wrong wave, he was like not crashing wave 3 properly, or like playing the bounces or anything like this properly. But his intense dedication and focus and competitiveness to the game, that drive, right, despite being the oldest in that room, minus Freddy, because Freddy's like a bit ancient, right, was just fascinating to watch. And I really felt like I saw a true competitor there. So yeah, I mean, that is why he's there. It's just his quality and person. Like his qualities as a person. And something else that I learned from him was that he told me, he sat me down and he told me, like, you need to tell players what they need to hear. And and you need to be able to read the room better. And by observing him, I think I learned some of those qualities too. So you can kind of see where that experience comes in, coupled with that natural talent that he's always had, and just it's finally blossomed into a championship. So yeah, that's why he's been around for a long time.
The thing I found funny, because I actually obviously do a show where weekly we do just go by the games, and it's easy to overreact to wins, and then the next week to be saying the same team's terrible when they go 0-2. Right? When we had this scenario, people, I feel like, got way too much caught up in the narrative of the regular split, because what's funny is, because the split began with Rogue looking a tiny bit dodgy, losing a couple of games, and obviously Rogue normally loses 3-4 games max a whole split. People were like, the sky's falling, and then crucially there would be some key big games that either the team looked like they got fluky on, or the other team just beats you. And by the end of the split, even though actually, I will point this out to people, yeah, they didn't finish top 2 like they normally do, but they did finish, first of all, top 2 was a tie, and then they were second after that with 1 game less. So it wasn't a bad split, certainly, in terms of normal teams in the LEC. A lot of teams would love a split like this, mate. But for Rogue, the narrative was they've got no chance. It's over. They've all gone downhill. It's like people forgot what happened in the spring. And then people also acted like at the end, sort of almost like you fluked 11 wins or whatever. That's pretty hard to do in LEC, I'll tell you. There's a lot of coaching staffs will tell you that's a good season. So coming into the playoffs, yes, there's a story after this about obviously all the scrim problems, etc. How do you view the regular split? How do you say this went for Rogue?
Okay, so let me tell you about the summer. I remember going to the room after week 1, 3 or 4 weeks into practice, right? And I sat Freddie down, and this kind of shows the character and the kind of person Freddie is as well. And I said, look, if we keep practicing like this and things go the way they are, we're going to come 5th, right? And I think a lot of coaches might see that situation and say, you're overreacting, right? Or, that's not on. But he sat down and he said, I agree. So what can we do about it? And the impact that has, right? And from then we facilitated discussion with players, and it was a real uphill battle. The impact that has, the ability for me to feel like I can, or for anyone in the team to feel like that they can speak about their problems to him, was, I think, tremendously helpful, right? And to be open about that. And I'm not an easy guy to work with, by the way. I have insanely high standards, and I'm also a bit of a perfectionist in a bad way almost, right? And every time I'd come to him about this, and we had our battles, he would sit down and think about it and implement it the best way he can. And I think that was tremendously helpful throughout our regular season. And to sum up why we didn't do so well in the regular season, aside from meta, was just in spring, we had this whole narrative about, okay, let's just try work around our problems and find alternative solutions. In summer, I think our mindset shifted to, okay, there are some problems that you cannot avoid, right? And this has always been kind of my way of solving issues as well, and we finally agreed to do it this way in one way, right? We kind of agreed to do this in this way with the entire team, sorry, not in one way. And from then on, it was just obviously an uphill battle mentally, because you're talking about things that you don't want to talk about, you're hearing things that you don't want to hear, but you're addressing real problems. And I think that really showed in our championship. I think there was a guy called Edwin Land, the founder of the Polaroid. He said that the enemy of cooperation is politeness, right? And obviously I don't agree that, you should be rude at all times, but the idea behind that is there are some conversations that you must have and that you need to solve, right? And by addressing that directly, I really think that we came on top, and that was the reason why we didn't have that first place regular split, because I mean, talk to anyone on that team, we're all focused on trying to win the whole thing, not a regular season, right? And I think we finally had that change and shift in mindset where we're like, okay, fuck this, fuck the regular season, we're going to win the playoffs.
Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.